Self-doubt often manifests itself in the form of perfectionism. And if you're like me, I used to think being a perfectionist was a good thing, that it was synonymous with having high standards. You see, sometimes we deceive ourselves into thinking that all our busy work means that we are being productive. But what we don't realize is that all this activity keeps us running on the hamster wheel, going nowhere real fast. And that this perfectionism is our sneaky little sabotage mechanism that keeps us stuck playing small and hiding from truly being seen. So, if you are ready to finally get unstuck from this deceptive cycle of perfectionism so that you can actually make real, measurable progress in your business or your career, then honey, you are in the right place. Okay, let's do this. This is Keisha, your career and business confidence coach, equipping you to win by owning your inherent brilliance and eliminating your shrinking tendencies so that you will dominate in your field or in your industry. Click on the subscribe button below as well as the bell so that you will be notified of when I upload my weekly Wednesday videos. Don't forget, you can also follow me on Instagram. While you're in the link below, you can pick up a copy of my free ebook, 10 Confidence Building Strategies that you can implement now. The first thing that I want you to know about perfectionism is that it will absolutely kill your progress and cause you to crash and burn before you even got a chance to get started. Perfectionism is one of the great sifters that will separate the people that will be successful versus those who will be stuck in the same place for weeks, months, and years to come. Before I get too far though in talking about what is perfectionism and what to do about it, I want to be very clear that no one, absolutely no one, is immune from this tendency of perfectionism, especially high performing, high achieving women like you and me who really care about the quality of their work. But developing the habit of regrounding ourselves in what is truly important will help us to move the needle away from perfectionism so that we can prioritize what are the most effective things to do to make our business or our career advance. So the way in which I'm going to attack perfectionism today is by two parts. The first part is what I call the techniques, the more heady aspects of addressing perfectionism. But we can't forget the important second part, which is addressing what is perfectionism motivated by. And this is the more heartfelt, the more emotional aspect of perfectionism. The first way to overcome perfectionism is to focus on strategy before tactics. A lot of times we run and head out into execution without taking a step back and analyzing what the strategy is. So what is strategy? I'm going to break it down into three parts. Being strategic is having the context, seeing the big picture, and knowing the why. Remember this, the person who just knows how to do something will always work for the person who knows why. So it is important to get our head out of the weeds, stop being a busy bee, and asking the bigger questions that I just highlighted before. What's the purpose? What's the why? As business owners, these are the questions that we ask ourselves before we pursue a specific project. If we are working in a company, before you take on that PowerPoint page or you start crunching the numbers, ask the bigger question. And you may recognize that the thing that you're about to do actually may not even need to be done because it is not going to help you accomplish the goal. Second, being strategic is sharpening the saw. I got this from 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. It is such an important skill to have. Taking care of ourselves, investing in ourselves is important if we are going to make it to the end and not burn out. We need to realize that we are running a marathon and not a sprint, which means we don't take shortcuts when it comes to our health. when it comes to getting the sleep that we need to get. People think that self-care sometimes is selfish, but self-care, as Lisa Nicole says, is not selfish. What self-care is, it is actually helping you to be able to last in the entire marathon all the way to the finish line. And if we practice self-care, we will be 10 times more productive in our actual wake hours when we're doing our jobs. Finally, being strategic means focusing on priorities. It means ruthlessly eliminating all the distractions and all the noise. I love it how Greg McKeown in his book Essentialism puts it. He says, first you prioritize, then you have to decide to make trade-offs, and then finally you discern the unimportance of practically everything else. One of the main things that gets in the way of us being strategic, being effective, and most productive is because we are distracted by everything that we could do, and we usually pursue those things at the expense of doing the things that we most importantly need to do in order to get the results that we want. Oh child, can you imagine? That was just point number 1, but don't worry, we only have one more point to go. But in the meantime, let me get some tea before I spill the rest of the tea, get it? Anyway, before I go on to the final point, let me know, out of all the comments I made so far, what's the thing that stood out most to you that you know you need to implement in order to become more strategic? Go ahead and share that with me in the comments right below. The second way to overcome perfectionism is to release fear and shame. Brené Brown talks about how perfectionism is usually motivated by fear and shame, and that when perfectionism is driving, shame is always driving shotgun, and fear is always the annoying backseat driver. We struggle with perfectionism in areas where we feel most vulnerable to shame, in areas that we don't feel adequate or good enough in. And we think perfectionism will prevent us from being blamed, ridiculed, or criticized, and so we try to do everything perfectly by dotting every I's and crossing every T's. But we don't realize that our worthiness is not based on the outcome of a project that we're working on or the perfection of a product that we have launched. We are worthy just because we are. Our worthiness is inherent in who we are. And even more importantly, you deserve to be in the room because you have earned your right to be in the room. You have earned your right to have a seat at the table. And there are millions of people who need to see somebody who looks like you, who sounds like you, who speaks like you, who has your same gender, who has your same color skin tone, who has your texture here. They need to see that representation of what success looks like, that it only doesn't show up in one form, but success can show up in many different forms, and one of those forms, honey, includes you. Now is the time to break through those glass ceilings, not only the external ones, which we know there are a lot of those, but even more importantly, the internal limits that we have placed upon ourselves. As the famous African proverb says, if there is no enemy within, the enemy outside can do us no harm. So I want you to share in the comments below, what's one action that you will take in the upcoming week that will help you to reduce the impact of perfectionism in your life. And I also want to share with you some of the resources that I mentioned in this video. The first is a book by Brené Brown called The Gifts of Imperfectionism. If you want to overcome perfectionism, this is a great resource. Second, I mentioned the book Essentialism by Greg McKeown. It has some very good strategies that will help you to focus on what the most important thing is. And finally, we talked a lot about self-care. I want to mention a book by Keisha Blair called Holistic Wealth. It really talks about 32 life lessons to help you find your purpose, prosperity, and happiness. So I don't get any commissions from these books, but they've been really helpful to me and even some of my clients in terms of how they've overcome perfectionism. Well, join us next week where where we'll talk a little bit more about some habits that we can incorporate in how to crush and overcome self-doubt. Have a great week.